In this video, we'll discuss demolding and finishing your gemstones. If you're using polyester resin, the back surface of your gems may be sticky, so you'll have to be careful when demolding them. To remove gems from a plastic mold, you should start by flexing the mold in an attempt to break the bond between the mold and the surface of the resin. Sometimes you may have to use a sharp tool in order to do this. You should push the tool in gently around the outer edges of the gemstones. This may cause the gems to pop out completely in some cases, but it should at least loosen the gemstones so you can remove them. When using a sharp tool, you should take great care not to scratch the surface of the gem or the wall of the mold. If your gem gets scratched up, you can minimize the scratches by spraying the surface of your gem with a clear resin spray, which you should be able to find at online stores that sell resin and casting supplies. As you can see, the homemade mold I made for my faceted gemstone can be easily ripped apart with my fingers. Once a gem is removed from a mold like this, it should be trimmed around its edges with a heavy scissors or utility knife. You want it to look as neat and as symmetrical as possible. The gemstone that I made using a modeling clay mold had to be dug out and scraped free of the clay. The mold itself was destroyed in the process, but since I can reuse the clay, it's no big deal. It does take a lot of effort to clean and polish a clay molded gemstone, and I often have to rely on a Dremel with a buffing attachment to create a smooth stone, and even then I'll have to use clear resin spray to give the gemstone a clear shine. Backing your gemstones. This is something you'll have to do if you want your gemstones to have that brilliant sparkle whenever the light hits them. I have heard of people gluing tin foil to the back of their gemstones, but that can result in backings that are wrinkly or that become wrinkly with time. By far your best bet for backing gems is to use something called chrome tagboard. What this is tagboard or poster board that has a mirror shiny surface on one side. You can find this at many craft stores in the stationery and matting section. This stuff is pretty expensive, so you'll want to conserve it and store whatever leftover scraps you can for later gem projects. The first step in backing your gemstones is to lay down your piece of chrome tagboard and start laying out your gemstones on top of it. Each gem should have at least 1/4 of an inch of space around it. Gemstones that are 3 inches in diameter or larger should have about 1/2 of an inch of space around them on all sides. For the next step of the backing process, you'll need to have a hot glue gun with all-purpose glue sticks. You should clean and trim your gemstones before you back them, and you should always back the larger gems first. Take your gem, and starting from the middle, squeeze out a large amount of hot glue onto its back surface. Lay the gem into place on the chrome tagboard, pressing it down firmly to squeeze the excess hot glue and any trapped air bubbles out from under the gemstone. You may have to push the gem along the surface of the chrome to remove some bubbles, although you should be careful not to push the gemstone off of the edge of the chrome. Try to work as quickly as possible, since hot glue will harden quickly, and any air bubbles trapped underneath the gem will be trapped there forever once it cools. Try to avoid getting hot glue onto the surface of the gem if you can. You may have to gently brush the hot glue away from the gem, but try not to burn your fingers as you do this. If for some reason you drip or smudge hot glue onto the gem surface, you can remove it with Tester's brush cleaner or a similar solvent. As you gain experience backing gemstones, you should get a good idea of how much hot glue to apply to the back of a gem and how to press the gems into the chrome without making a mess. Once your hot glue hardens, you can remove the gems from the chrome by gently cutting around each gem with the heavy scissors. Care should be taken not to cut the edges of the gem itself. If you want, you can also score around the gemstone with a utility knife before cutting it with the scissors. Just be careful when scoring your gem that you don't cut scratches into the tabletop directly underneath your gemstone. Now that your gem is finished, it should be stored in some sort of container until it is to be used. I prefer to sort my gems by color. As you can see, you can create gems in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. The gems can be directly mounted onto props and armor using hot glue or super glue, or they can be attached to a costume using fabric glue, gem tack, or some other type of waterproof flexible glue. thought as a bonus section I'd show you something that I bought recently online. It's called Cool Jewels. And what it is an ice tray that you pour water into, and it makes jewel-shaped ice cubes. Now when I first ordered this, I thought this was going to be like a plastic two-part mold, with two parts that would flip together, and this would be rigid plastic, but it turns out to be some kind of rubber. So I'm kind of worried about whether or not I can pour resin into it, any part of it, and have it turn out well, make gems that can actually be removed and be shiny. And it's kind of open at the top, so it's going to be kind of tough to, make gems using this half and set it down like that and not have the resin run out everywhere. So I'll have to figure out a way to get around that problem. But I'll do some experimenting and show you the results. Oh, and the package comes with a nice piece of chrome pegboard, which of course I can use to back the gems once I've made them, if I can make them. Okay, here's what I've done. I've taken some foam core and sliced it up and stuck it together to make kind of a little block that goes in the bottom part of this mold to support the top part of the mold. This section right here is the part that I want to recreate in gem form. And I've taken, you could use pegboard, but I use styrene, and hot glued a layer of chrome pegboard to it, because I figure I might as well make it with the backing already in it. And carefully cut it so that it should just be able to fit in here. Of course it won't work now that you're looking. I'll do some fiddling around, and then I'll be ready to pour the resin in there. Okay, I've mixed up a batch of resin, and I'm going to pour it into the space that I made here. This is easy cast epoxy resin. You can't try this with polyester resin because it won't. It'll leave a sticky surface on the top. Let's pour the rest in this one right here. Make an upside down one. Oh, and once you start using an ice cube tray like this, putting resin and chemicals in it, you can't use it for ice again. It's pretty much shot from then on. So, yeah. Make sure you label it and keep it somewhere where no one will use it to make ice. And I'll just let that sit overnight somewhere. Okay, it has been a day, and my resin is now hardened, and I am going to remove it from the molds now.
I've noticed it's very easy to demold. Well, it's a lot easier than getting it out of a rigid mold, so far.
Ah. Wow. This turned out really well. Huh. Take all this stuff off. There you go. I think it turned out pretty good. On the whole, it's pretty good. Thumbs up.